Rob Pizzola is a professional sports bettor based in the lovely nation of Canada, and he's also the founder of the Hammer Betting Network. You can catch him hosting Forward Progress, their NFL betting show on YouTube and all other major podcast platforms. Forward Progress dives deep into weekly matchups, betting markets, and analysis from some of the sharpest minds in the industry. I also always remind you to follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Pizzola. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Mark.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying some Blue Jays afternoon baseball here in front of me.
Time of your life.
We're in the playoff mix. Getting the day games while I'm working at the desk is it's a beauty. I get to watch it and prep for NFL. I'm in the zone right now, Mark.
That's when you're thankful that you do what you do, when you can enjoy a little afternoon baseball, do your job at the same time, hopefully make some money tonight. Admittedly, none of us, I don't think, made any money last Sunday. Dolphins looked terrible. I'm going to get to this coming Dolphins game, but Sunday, I had bet the line up to Dolphins -10. I thought for sure they were going to win. I had the funny Storm Duck Jack Jones pick six parlay, which didn't pay out, only because Storm got hurt. I have a feeling if he was there.
I feel like as soon as you placed that bet, like it was destined for one of them to get hurt at that exact
overhit,
moment.
though. Over rushing.
I will give you credit for that.
Yard.
Yep.
1.5 again this week, by the way. If you want to hop on board, I'm just saying. What I don't think I checked, but I don't think he hit the overs because you said the HN receiving overs. I can't imagine that cash.
No, he finished with 3 catches on 5 targets, which honestly ended up just being a bad play because we actually got the game state that we wanted to cash that. Typically speaking, when a team's getting blown out in a game, there's a lot of dump offs to running backs. The other team plays really soft, and we just didn't get a lot of those looks. But yeah, the Dolphins offense proved to be quite incompetent last week. The injuries on the O-line didn't help.
So nice.
Nice sounding, right?
Yeah.
They were incompetent.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nicest term I could come up with.
What are people saying? Because you do a lot of national shows. You're not, even though you're in Canada, you discuss things from a national level. So are people just mocking what the Dolphins trotted out there on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it depends on the way you look at it, whether you think it's narrative or not a narrative. But the feeling is that Mike McDaniel has lost the team, and it's Tyreek Hill on the sidelines getting really upset last week. There was some talk in the offseason of other teams were scrimmaging against Miami, and they couldn't believe how the Dolphins were playing in those. So I think that's the general sentiment right now. Is basically when is McDaniel going to get fired? The season it's one game, but everyone thinks it's over for the Dolphins at this point. So it's how soon do you blow it up? And it's tough because it's only one game, but definitely I look at this week as well for Miami and the injuries that this is week 2 in the NFL. You're missing 2 starting offensive linemen. Your secondary is in shambles. No offense to Storm Duck. I don't know him as a person or anything, but he wouldn't be starting on many teams in the NFL. He wouldn't be starting on any team in the NFL. He's only there because of the injuries already in the secondary. And then on top of that, he gets hurt himself. So it's so thin for them at O-line and corner. You just don't see that in week 2 NFL. So I think they're already quite far behind the ball.
And Rob, not to just bog down in the Dolphins, but I know you're an analytical guy. You do this for a living. Like a bad team to an unprepared start of the season that's what we're trying to deal with down here. Are the Dolphins terrible, or are they just unprepared to play the Colts? How do you decide on that? Because you have such a small sample size of one game. Even we were talking about the game tonight with the Packers, where I've bought into the Packers. Jordan Love's here. Oh my goodness, they have Micah Parsons. They're winning the Super Bowl. How do you not buy in, or how do you figure that out with such a small sample size?
So for me, I always look at the player personnel, right? And to me, the Dolphins roster is not very good. I just don't think you can hold up with that O-line. And again, secondary. Now, part of it is injuries for sure. But I think because of that, they start behind the 8 ball. Preparedness, I'm definitely willing to question. For me, I think there's a lot of coaches in the NFL that are really good coordinators, but then they graduate to being coaches, and they just don't know how to manage the locker room and manage a team. And that's what I think is going on with Miami. I think they have a very good offensive mind, but he may have just lost his players at this point. Whereas I think there's other teams where you maybe don't have the best coach from an X's and O's point of view. Dan Campbell be a great example, right? When Dan Campbell got hired in Detroit, the fan base was pulling their hair out. They're like, why did we hire this guy? This guy's doing an interview, talking about how he wants his players biting other players' ankles and kneecaps and stuff like. And they're like, what is this guy talking about? But he surrounded himself with good coordinators in Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, and he knew how to resonate with his players. Like, his players would die for him on the field. They literally they put in so much maximum effort every game. So I personally look at Miami, I just don't see that as a team. I felt when they went down to Indy, they were cooked last week. I really did. You could almost sense it in the body language of the players. And again, each person will look at a game, they'll see different things. This is just my own personal bias, but I don't think he has the locker room there. I don't think he's dumb by any stretch of the imagination. I think he'd be a great coordinator, again, on the offensive side of the ball, but I just don't think they're getting the buy-in on that side. But it's a combo, Crowder, of coaching and roster, because they don't have a great roster either.
Well, I guess I should then jump ahead and ask you what you think about Sunday's game against New England. Dolphins are favorites, and so that means Vegas thinks something that we didn't see, or thinks that the Patriots are even worse. I love the Dolphins for no other reason than I'm not buying the narrative. Okay. I'm saying I'm not going to believe what my eyes or the stats told me. That cannot be representative of what the Dolphins are going to do on the football field this season. So I'm curious where you stand on Sunday's game.
So I'm gonna compliment you, Mark. I generally think that is a good idea when you're looking at small samples, right? The Dolphins played one game. They played horribly, probably one of the worst games, if not the worst, they will play this season. And generally, when you are betting on sports, it's very similar to a stock market, right? You're trading games essentially, and you kind of want to buy low on teams and you want to sell when the stock is high. The problem is the stock for the other team is also low in New England, who they lost at home to the Raiders. They had a pretty dismal second half. And to boot here, you're not getting anything in the form of players coming back from injury. It's gotten worse, right? The player personnel situation, especially O-line related, has gotten worse. Whereas New England, it doesn't look like they're going to get Christian Gonzalez back, but they're going to get another cornerback this week. And aside from that, they're a pretty healthy team. So ordinarily, I like to fade the week one overreaction. And I agree with you that most people who are looking at this game are like, no, Miami's done. They're cooked. They played terribly. I need to bet against them. And normally I would advise against that. But I just don't see much personally to make an argument in favor of Miami. The best argument I could actually make is that historically, these September home games for them, they've had a really good home field advantage because they put the other team in the sun for the entire game. And that team tends to wear down as the game goes on. There's actually some good live angles to support that over the years as well. If you're betting in-game and the other team wearing down as time goes on, I think that's an edge for them. But aside from that, X's and O's wise, I don't really see why I would stake my money on Miami. So this is New England or nothing for me. But I'm also, I've had my concerns about New England going into the year. Generally, this is a team that, if you look at the betting markets, are expected to make a huge leap this year. And I don't know that that's necessarily warranted. I mean, they still don't have the ability to generate a lot of explosive plays. Their O-line did not hold up last week against the Raiders defensive front. That's probably the best chance that Miami has to win this game, is for their D-line to just really disrupt the flow. But I could see a situation where Vrabel has the Pats offense just kind of dinking and dunking their way downfield. Get the ball out of Drake May's hands quickly to running back, tight end over the middle of the field. Make Miami tackle in space. And they've struggled to do that not only this year, but last year as well. So personally, I make this game a pick'em. If I have to bet the game, I'm betting New England. But I generally like the way that you're thinking about this, Mark.
Could be the final time that they're favorites this season.
Could be.
I'm not kidding. Yeah.
No,
what would you set the early line at? Because after Sunday, they're going to play an early week game. They're going to play Thursday night at Buffalo. What would your early line be on that?
It's
I mean,
at Buffalo.
it's at Buffalo. It's a short week. I mean, Buffalo's had their number.
I would say off the top of my head, if I was setting that, I would set it right now at Buffalo laying 10.5,
Wow.
roughly. So I think it'll be a double-digit spread unless the Bills somehow, which it can happen, they could lose to the Jets this week. The Jets look very solid offensively in game one. So you never know what the week two results are going to be. But if I set it right now, I would make Buffalo a 10.5 point favorite.
Yeah, that feels about right. How about tonight's game? You've got Washington and Green Bay. Packers are 3-point home favorites.
So, full disclosure, what I bet is very different from the number now. So I bet Commanders at 4 early in the week, and part of that was just the injury report for the Packers. So they played the Lions last week. They looked good in the process, but they lost Aaron Banks, their left guard. He's fine. He's an average O lineman. But they also lost Zach Tom, the right tackle, who is a very solid right tackle. And anytime I see cluster injuries on the O line, I immediately like to try to fade those teams because it's challenging. Now, I don't know what to make of Green Bay just yet because my belief was that the Lions were going to have a big time down year. I thought losing both of your coordinators in the offseason was a real thing. And Lions fans told me otherwise. They're like, no, this roster's amazing. They'll be able to overcome it. Well, the offense looked brutal in week one for the Lions. So I don't know how much of that was Green Bay versus how much of it was Detroit. So I'm not quite there on Green Bay yet. Another thing that I think Micah Parsons, I'm a Cowboys fan, right? The guy's a game wrecker, but he played half the snaps last week, and he's likely going to do the same again today. And you look at the splits, on-off splits for when he's been on the field versus off, they were a bad defense last week when he was off the field, and they were very good when he was on. So I don't think you can count him in as like 100% Micah Parsons just yet while he's limited with that back injury. Ultimately, I think Green Bay was able to get after Goff, who's a statue in the pocket. They did a lot of great scheme things on defense, which really rattled him. But last year, Detroit was able to scheme receivers open. That's what Ben Johnson did. Goff was throwing to guys that there's no one within 10 yards of them. Last week, none of that. And I just wonder if we're overrating Green Bay a little bit here to start the year. So at 3, I think the number is like I'm not betting Washington 3. I think that's probably the most likely outcome in the game is Green Bay wins by 3. But I think there's enough concerns here on the Packers, especially from the injury report side of things as well. A couple injuries at corner for them. Washington's pretty much clean for this game, and they're going to give Green Bay a mobile quarterback in Jaden Daniels, which they didn't have to deal with last week. And Jaden Daniels overcomes a lot of the pass rush problems that other teams pose to him because of his elusiveness. And I love the addition of Laramie Tunsil at left tackle for them. They held up against the Giants' defensive front last week. So I make this game exactly 3, and that's where the market is. So it's really tough for me to advocate for anything now.
All right, I'll give you one other game. There's one other AFC East matchup on Sunday. Buffalo is a 6.5-point favorite at the Jets.
Maybe I'm out to lunch here, but I'm very optimistic that the Jets can keep this game close. I think they're actually quite live in this game because I think it is strength on weakness for what the Jets offense did really well last week. The Jets offense beat up the Pittsburgh defensive front. Like you would think of the Steelers defensive front as the strength of that team, and the Jets ran all over them. Breece Hall looked unreal. Justin Fields in that offense, using his legs, was very dynamic as well. And you look at Buffalo over the years, they've already struggled to stop the run. Ed Oliver's on the injury report today, didn't practice. He's in danger of missing the game as well. You look at how Baltimore, up until the last few drives of the game, just moved the ball at will on the ground. It's kind of I'm not comparing, Hall and Fields to Lamar and Henry in the sense Lamar and Henry are the better tandem. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the same elements, right? Especially when you have a quarterback that's mobile. I think the Jets offense might actually be for real. I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm such an Justin Fields guy, but it just really worked for them last week. They schemed a lot of great stuff, had the running game going. On the defensive side of the ball, yeah, you're always going to be concerned going up against Buffalo. They can score in bunches, but they don't, the Jets will basically take away the explosive plays and let Buffalo just kind of dink and dunk their way up the field and try to rely on a turnover here or there. I don't know that it's coming necessarily, but I think the Jets offense can be pretty solid in this matchup. So the one thing I would caution against, this number moved. It was on 7. It's down to 6.5, 6, like you mentioned, Mark. Sauce Gardner showed up on the injury report today for the Jets. I would just wait till you know definitively one way or another whether he's going to be in to bet the Jets. If he's in, you bet the Jets at the current price. If he's out, the market will move back. The market will move back towards Buffalo. It's that substantial enough of an injury, so you might even be able to get a better price if you wait. But I would monitor that one very closely tomorrow around this time in the afternoon.
And you're not saying you wouldn't bet them if he was out. You would just wait for the number you'd wait to get even more.
I don't think there's any advantage to betting it right now because it's already been bet, right? Somebody's bet it down from 7 to 6.5, 6. You're not really getting a super, once it comes off 7, you're not getting a super valuable number. So you might as well just wait for that to resolve itself, because if he is out, someone will bet Buffalo and you will get a better price again. So I just say wait till injury reports tomorrow and go from there. But I'm weirdly optimistic about the Jets offense right now. Famous last words, I would say.
All right. Rob Pizzola, founder of the Hammer Betting Network. Catch him hosting Forward Progress on YouTube and all other major podcast platforms. Forward Progress dives deep into weekly matchups, betting markets, and analysis from some of the sharpest minds in the industry, of which Rob is one. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Rob Pizzola. Always appreciate your time.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. Enjoy the games this week.
I imagine that's what our show would sound like if we did research, because he actually knows what's going on in all the games. We have no idea. We just kind of are off the cuff on everything. But I imagine the way he talks about games is the way this show should sound in perfect world.
No idea.
I was just praying you were going to ask him if he likes Chipotle at some point. I mean, that's what
I was going to get there, and we're so late. Do you like Chipotle?
I'll eat Chipotle. I'm not going out of my way to get Chipotle. I'm not.
Overrated.
I would say it's overrated.
Bingo.
Overrated.
For me, if I like Chick-fil-A really does it for me. That's my, like, if I'm late night, I'm hungry, like Chick-fil-A, man, that Chipotle's not even on my radar.
Because you're a proud Canadian, so you would have Chick-fil-A over Pizza.
Pizza is also not my jam. I'll tell you that. As someone who is the son of 2 Italian immigrants, I might actually be disowned if I ate pizza in their presence. So yeah, I don't go near that establishment. But yeah,
fair enough. All right. Thank you, Rob.
All right, guys.
I'll let you.